Well, I mean, Philadelphia's in that spot right now. Darius Slay is an easy cut. That's an easy one. You and I, any fan could make that because they nailed their two early
Draft
picks at
picks.
corner. Right. The tougher pick is going to be, do you keep the linebacker or do you keep A.J. Brown? And I've said this before. I would move off A.J. Brown. It's in the NBA. When a big guy gets hurt early, he gets hurt often. When a receiver is verbal and outspoken early, they're outspoken often. Des Bryant didn't get quieter, right? So
Yeah.
Debo didn't get quieter. I would move off A.J. Brown because you're so good at running back, O-line, quarterback, tight end, and Devontae Smith. I think that's an easy one, but you don't want to think like a fan. But I think people will look at A.J. Brown and go, he's so good. It's wide receiver. You can find really Puka Nacua is a fifth rounder. I mean, there's one or two positions in the NFL, cornerback, wide receiver, running back. It's amazing how much talent there is in the fourth round. Like there's all sorts of examples. So I look at Philadelphia and Howie Roseman, who, by the way, you know the organization. He said after the Super Bowl, this is going to look different. Not everybody's going to love it. So to me, that was a little bit of a caution. Guys, we're moving off some popular, talented guys. You don't say that if you just have to cut Darius Slay. That's an easy one that nobody's losing sleep on.
Yeah, to me, the AJ Brown one would only be if they feel that relationship that Brandon Graham kind of let the cat out of the bag and then they tried to walk it back. It's like, come
Right.
on. But, winning cures all and their relationship. I mean, he had a touchdown in the playoffs. He is, when healthy, one of the best, four, five,
Yes.
six wide
Yes.
receivers in the league. I think the only way they would do something like that would be to clear up some movement if they could get Myles Garrett. And by all accounts, they are going to be one of the lead dogs in those moves. So I think the thing with Zach Vaughn, this is what makes Howie and I would just say consistent football teams maintain it or not. It's like, yeah, he's a good guy. He had an incredible season, but are we going to break the bank for a linebacker? And his history would say the Eagles and good teams do not,
That's
right?
right.
Let someone else give you 4 years, $80 million and $45 million guaranteed. And this is why you keep drafting and why you keep investing. And listen, part of being a good NFL team takes some luck. Sometimes you got a guy 1 year, $4 million, first team All Pro. That's why you pay Vic Fangio $5-6 million. That's he last year he looked at this guy, special teamer, kind of outside linebacker. Let's make him a middle linebacker under my tutelage. Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. Let's roll. So if I was Howie, I'd go, well, my return on investment is not the player, it's the coach. Why couldn't I do this again? Why can't we find a guy in the draft, maybe on the second day, second or third round, let Fangio mold him like a piece of clay? He did it with Navarro Bowman. Why couldn't he? That's the best case scenario, but no one in a million years in the NFL would have said Zach Vaughn, first team All Pro, middle linebacker, no chance. And football more than all these other sports, the power of these coordinators, if you get it right. I mean, look at Spagnola, look at some of the offensive coordinators over the years, can change your franchise, right? Because
It's
you're not
yeah.
paying them player money, you're paying them $4, $5, $6 million.
It's amazing to me how fans really, really struggle. Um, and like to me, AJ Brown and Bonner, the linebacker, are pretty easy moves because I'm not going to disrupt that O line probably for the next 3 years. I'm that O line maybe in 2 to 3 years. Lane Johnson retires, but
Yeah.
the core of that organization to me is now Saquon, Jalen Hurts, and that O line. Everything else to me, I'll move. But you're finding this with Detroit. It's really, I mean, think how great people thought Dak was. I mean, people really thought Dak was a top five quarterback when the Cowboys O line 5 years ago. Those guys were all closer to their prime. Now we look up and go, Jesus, Dak's the most overpaid guy in the NFL by a long shot. So, I just think when I look at like when Tyreek Hill, Andy Reid moved off him, I never forget the day it happened. I was like, yeah, of course you move off him. Like you got to look at the picks they got. At the time, I'm like, first round, second round, second round. I'm like, Brett Veach is going to hit on at least half of these. Of course you make the move. He's a deep threat. Those guys don't mean much in December and January when it's freezing and windy. So, I mean, the A.J. Brown one is easy. I'll go back to it. When a receiver, Debo's a prime example. When they start getting outspoken early, that doesn't go backwards. And and by the way, you won with him. You got to a couple Super Bowls. Like, I also think there at some point in a salary cap sport, players become commodities. Like, and there's just you have to move them. They're chess pieces, and you say, well, where's the humanity? Come on. We all know the game here. This is the way it is with pro sports. By the way, in college now, kids leave their program all the time. They make
Yeah.
promises, they commit, they leave. We all know this is how the game works.
Well, the one thing with AJ too, if that would be something they wanted to do, he still has a lot of value. I mean, he's still one of the best players in the league. I mean, you're not just kicking him away like Debo for a fifth round pick. It might bring you back like a second and a third. So
Yeah,
I don't know if you could get. I mean, they traded a first for him. Could they get a late first? I mean, some of those teams don't have the most cap room, but you definitely could probably get a second and a third. And
yep,
depend. I think there's always other moves. He's not just getting rid of a player to get rid of a player. That Milton Williams, the defensive tackle that really came on, they would love to keep, but guys like that, he's going to get $20 million a year.
that's right.
So I think they're always thinking. Like the one thing the Eagles have been like since before I got there and ever since long after I left, they will go big game hunting. I'm telling you, if Myles Garrett, this is the Browns, can say all they want, we're not moving on. And listen, I would understand if you're a well-run, competitive team, but given the Deshaun's situation, this is a time to just blow the thing up. And to me, he would net you multiple first round picks. So if he's available, I think the Eagles would be front and center with the package of things that they would put in front of them to land that player. And their owner, and how you manipulate the salary cap is you pay these insane bonus, right?
Right.
It's everyone plays under the same umbrella of the cap, but I can cut you a bigger signing bonus, and that's where
Yes.
guys sign up for.
Yeah, and for the record, fans tend to think all these owners are even. No, they're not.
No.
Stan Kroenke, Jeffrey Lurie, the Denver Broncos can pay more up front than a majority of the teams. I mean, the Chicago Bears are just not an organization. I mean, the Packers have to get everything approved. The Bears don't have that kind of money historically. Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. I saw something today that came out, and I have a friend who has a business, and the business changed. It was not his fault. And just the culture of his business changed 3 or 4 different ways post COVID. And he's now stuck with sort of a business that's not, it lost about 30% of its legs. And my wife and I had this discussion the other day about something that, I own a podcast company, and now it's we call it more of a media company because we had to grow. And if you don't grow, you'll die. You'll get eaten alive. And I was watching these stories about Shedeur Sanders has come off, as arrogant to some people during interviews. And I was thinking about this. Here's what's changed the last 2 classes. Quarterbacks are coming into the NFL now as millionaires. And go back to when you were 21 years old or 22 years old. If you had like $7 million in the bank, I would have been cocky, like cockier. And, there was always this thing. Bill Parcells years ago, John, said, don't draft celebrity quarterbacks. Well, that's over. I mean, these guys, I'm sorry, if you play at Ohio State, you're a celebrity quarterback. If you play at, under Lincoln Riley or at Georgia, you're a celebrity quarterback. I mean, Carson Beck is average, and he's a celebrity quarterback. And the other thing, though, is, am I wrong? You're a former scout. That NIL kids come now, and they're not starving, and they have a nice car, and they may have $2 million in the bank. And if they think the organization that's interviewing them is a bottom tier organization, and they think to themselves, I don't want to play for the blank. I don't want to play for this team or that team or Cleveland. I'm going to come in with a little attitude. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying the world changes. And I think NIL for quarterbacks, these kids are coming into interviews now with a little more leverage and with a stronger opinion on themselves.
Yeah, I've been talking to my buddies that are on the road the last couple of years, and they will tell you that, at the big Power Four, top, I don't know, 30, 40 programs, the parking lots look like the NFL parking lots for the college kids. Like you go to the University of Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State or Alabama or LSU, I would say there are 70 or 80 brand new cars. And from everything, I mean, Carson Beck just had a Lamborghini stolen. And like you said, he's
Yeah.
average. I think, part of this is talking to friends. They like it because these guys are easy to evaluate how they handled. They made, let's say, $1.8 million over the last couple of years, and their work ethic, their accountability, none of it changed. Shedeur is much more like a Peyton Manning or a Steph Curry. Like, he's a rich kid. I mean, he grew
Yeah.
up. I mean, he's Deion
Yeah.
Sanders' son, so he's been around the bright lights from day one, right, since the beginning. I think the questions people have with Shedeur is, there was a famous line of Deion, like, I think the New York Giants wanted to interview him at the combine, and he asked them, like, where are you drafted? And they said seventh. He's like, I'm not wasting my time. But Deion could back it up because he was one of the best prospects we've ever seen. He became one of the great players we've ever seen. These people look at, when they're interviewing Shedeur, they don't look at him like he's Andrew Luck or Caleb Williams. Like, he's not the best prospect they've ever seen. So I think sometimes they look for a little humility in that moment. And I don't know. I think Shedeur is going to be a fascinating case study. I will say this, watching him as a player, like, sometimes you get kind of that cockiness. You're like, this guy's kind of a fake fraud, not that tough. Like, he is tough. Like, you watch him play, he's getting hit,
Oh
getting
God,
back up.
yes.
So to me, there's a old school nature to his game that he gets from his dad. I think they would question his arm's not great relative to like elite prospects. And
Yeah.
even he admitted, like, I got my mom's genes as an athlete, not my dad. So he's not an upper echelon athlete. And yeah, I just think he's going to be fascinating. Some people think he could fall out of the top 10. Who knows? I mean, there's not a quarterback. None of these guys are guaranteed. Everyone thinks the Giants are going to take one of these. What if they just sign Sam Darnold? Like, they're not a lock to sign any of these or, draft any of these guys. So I think Cam Ward, who has a much more, I would say, gifted skill set, just bigger arm, more
Yeah.
just quicker athlete. You're also compared to the crew you're in, right? So when I'm interviewing people, guy come in, guy come out, guy comes in, guy comes out. So it's just kind of, I'm living in the moment, and when you come off a little bit different, some guys are just rubbed the wrong way.